Welcome back to the Heartland Huddle. This is Eric, joined alongside my co-host here, Xavier. This is the Heartland Huddle, Chiefs, Lions, and NFL Talk. Xavier, how you been, man?
I've been good, but sad, and just happy that week is behind us, ready for a new one. Just see how it goes.
Of course, you're referring to the Detroit Lions falling to 1-1 with the loss this past weekend.
It was terrible, man. I don't know what to say.
Well, the Chiefs, of course, improved to 2-0, so I'm happy about that. However, it was a sloppy game, and we'll get into that. But as I was saying, welcome back, audience, to the Heartland Huddle, Chiefs, Lions, and NFL Talk. You can catch our predictions episode every Saturday. You can search our YouTube channel at Heartland NFL Talk. Please like and subscribe, comment, suggest content. We'd love to engage with you guys. Also search for us on Apple Podcast as well. So, we kind of alluded to it. Let's jump into it here. Let's start with the Chiefs because I think there's maybe some more meat on the bone there with the Lions. But the Chiefs opened 2-0 and survived the Bengals on a last-second field goal from Butker. Overall, just initial thoughts, X. Do you think kind of these performances are sustainable with what we're working with?
Yeah, I mean, every game is not going to be perfect. Every game is not going to just look pretty with Patrick Mahomes just ripping the ball and, Chris Jones doing his thing on the defensive side of the ball. It's a fight. It's a battle. You know what I'm saying? And no battle is pretty. So,
yeah.
But is it sustainable? Yeah, it can be. It's just who's going to win the battle at the end? When the clock strikes zero at the end of the fourth quarter, who's up and who's down? So I think it could be sustainable. I mean, you look at last season, that's how a lot of games were won last season. There were some sloppy wins, but a win is a win in the NFL, which is really, really hard to come by. So, yeah, I think it's sustainable.
Yeah, you're right about that. I completely agree. I mean, I think with the Chiefs, as a fan, I don't want to see this week in and week out. We've been fortunate, I think, over the last 3 to 4 years to win a lot of one-score ball games. We all know Patrick Mahomes has come back from the most down 10-point games and really the history of football there, especially in the playoffs. But my thing with it is I want to get back to that explosiveness. I want to get back to those 31-17 ball games. And like you said, I don't think, of course, that it's easy to win in the NFL. However, when you've brought in the wide receivers that you brought in, when you've got the play caller and Andy Reid that you do, and if you use last season as a learning curve, I'd like to see us get back to that explosive, blowing people out. And by the way, when I say blowout, I say maybe 10 points or more, right? 10 to 14 points. I consider that. A double-digit win in the NFL is something that, I sort of consider a blowout. But nonetheless, we moved to 2-0. Sloppy play overall by the Chiefs. A terrible interception thrown by Pat. He was 18 for 25, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Might be his worst game in the NFL to date, honestly.
Do you think?
Stat-wise.
I don't think that if you say so.
Well,
I mean, you'll see worse than that. If that's bad, that's terrible. You're going to see way worse games than that. And you still may come out with the win because sometimes, or even majority of the time, the defense may be the reason you win the game. It may not be because of him. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be games that's going to be worse than that. I wouldn't say it's his worst game yet. And how long has he been in the league? 8 years?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think so. But that's your opinion, though.
Well, I think it's just the burden of greatness. Speaking of the burden of greatness, go check out my monologue series on our YouTube channel at Heartland NFL Talk. Yeah, you can check out my monologue series. I'll be sort of contextualizing a bit of a tongue-in-cheek series about different narratives when it comes to Chiefs fandom. But anyway, back to Sunday. Speaking of the defense, yeah, you're right. Massive defensive touchdown. Burrow got strip sacked, and Shamari Connor with the scoop and score, made it 23-22 at that point, and that's coming off of that Patrick Mahomes interception, second interception in the second half. So defense bailing us out. It was the recipe for success, just like it was last year. and the Chiefs defense getting it done. We had alluded to it last week, and one thing that I was kind of looking at was our rookie left tackle, Kingsley Suamataia, and he had played well week one. If you remember, didn't give up any sacks. I think only gave up 2 hurries. We were talked about how Andy Reid would probably take that with the rookie left tackle, and then what a week can do.
It's one game at a time when it comes to it.
Yeah, I mean, what a week can do. He got flipped on his head by Trey Hendrickson. He got abused by Hendrickson all day.
Yeah. I mean, but I say it's a rookie. He's gonna have his downs. He's gonna have his ups. As long as he's still standing at the end, and the Chiefs ultimately get the win at the end of the game is what matters. But I think he's gonna be on that offensive line for years to come, for a long time. So. Yeah,
he's definitely a cornerstone here, and I mean on top of that, Hendrickson, he did have 4 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 quarterback hits. So, like I say, Kingsley Suamataia, he was actually replaced on the final drive by Wanya Morris, and that's when Wanya Morris got that hands to the face penalty that set us back, that took us back to that 4th and 16, and of course we get the defensive pass interference call. Speaking of that, I want to go to that real quick. Your opinion, your take, thoughts on that 4th and 16 pass interference. Did we get bailed out, Xavier, or is that the correct call?
I mean, I'll say this. I watched a lot of games with Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
With having endings to games like that. And I must say the Chiefs luck up a lot when it comes to shit like that. Like They do.
I could pull up stats right now that shows that the Chiefs have more flags thrown against them than they do for them. And every critical moment in game, that's terrible. I don't know why I asked you that.
But at the end of the day, it still shows how great the team is. I mean, we know how great Patrick Mahomes is. We can't just put it all off on him. He's not out there doing it by himself. So, but as far as the call, he was a little early.
Yeah, he was early. That's obvious.
And I think he knew he was early. And my thing was, I'm like, all he had to do was just run up behind him. Just wait a second, reach around and swap the ball. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go put him on his ass, you know what I'm saying, before the ball gets there. Like, that's, I don't know. Some guys, they be in the heat of the moment. The thought process just doesn't, it just doesn't be right in the moment, I guess. So.
Side note on the way, that defender, that's a rookie for Cincinnati right there, by the way. And I think that's the larger point.
And there you go.
Yeah, and I think that's the larger point, X. Once again, we saw it a couple years ago in the AFC Championship game. Famously, Patrick Mahomes scrambled around the right side. The defender hit him out of bounds late, gives us an extra 15 yards. Butker kicks the game-winning field goal, so on and so forth. And I believe at that point, that gentleman, he was a rookie or a second-year player. And I think that's the point with the Chiefs, is that you get these rookie guys, you get these young players, or even you get defensive coaches or coaches in general, when they're facing Pat Mahomes and that offense and what he does late in games, late in the fourth quarter, they start thinking, I got to do more than what my job says I need to do right now. I got to play hero ball or else Patrick's going to beat us. And I think you saw a little bit of that on Sunday.
And that's okay, but your decision making in the moment, it all has to come together. It has to be the right move. It can't be one of them F up moves. It got to be the right move. And sometimes, man, guys just don't make the right move. We see it all the time in a bunch of NFL games where guys just they think they're doing the right thing, but it ends up costing them.
Yeah,
so,
it does, and it costs you wins. Now, this is Joe Burrow's been in the league. I think this is his 5th year in the league. 2 or 3 years out of his 5 years, he started 0-2 now, Cincinnati. So, with the 0-2 start, do you still see Cincinnati as well, actually, I was the one who thought Cincinnati was the Chiefs' biggest rival or contender or challenger in the AFC this year. Do you feel the same way?
I think
especially after the 0-2 start.
it could still be them to a point because we don't know how the next 4 or 5 weeks are going to go. But it's going to be a couple other teams too in the AFC too that's going to give the Chiefs a run for their money too. So I wouldn't just say that it's specifically them though. To answer the
Yeah, but the
question,
other team we were thinking is 0-2 as well, the Baltimore Ravens. But more on those guys later. Like I said, it's interesting. You got two AFC North teams starting 0-2. Those two teams very well could be 2-0. But the biggest takeaway for me there, this early on in the season going into week 3, is the fact that now, you get to week 14, 15, 16, when you start looking at that playoff seeding, Chiefs hold two massive tiebreakers over Baltimore and, of course, Cincinnati if they were to challenge for that 1 seed at this point. So that's my takeaway. Yeah. We hold both tiebreakers at that point, and we'd have record, of course. So that 1 seed, we always know that's pivotal. I like that.
But I don't think it would matter. I don't think it would, because the Chiefs
and that's
just
due to last
continuously.
Year. Yeah, that's due to last year, what we did last year. If the Chiefs were a 7 seed, I don't think any team sitting there going, oh, we want to see Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs,
Right. But what I'm saying is if the Chiefs are going to continuously win throughout the season, it doesn't matter. You catch the number 1 seed, you know what I mean? Home field advantage all the way through. You know what I mean? So I don't think even – well, the fact that you guys already did go 2-0 first 2 games, you riding high already. You're looking good for the playoffs, so it wouldn't even matter about those matchups coming back to haunt you toward the end of the season. At least that's what I think. I don't think it's going to matter. I think
I don't think it's going to matter. Sorry, go ahead.
They're going to stay high, and they'll be riding that high horse throughout the entire season. So. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the inevitability of the Chiefs. I think with what they did last year, they've earned that right to be sort of undoubtable. As I had mentioned on our first episode, go check that out, by the way, on our YouTube channel at Heartland NFL Talk. On our first episode, I had mentioned the inevitability that I don't think even if the Chiefs started 1-5, 2-6, that you can really doubt that the Chiefs, are not going to do something in the playoffs. But, no, overall, I thought it was a sloppy ball game by us. Thank goodness it was in Arrowhead, GEHA Field. I thought the Chiefs, though, for what it's worth, they bounced back, the defense, and then, of course, there's that man, Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker sitting there off his foot. I mean, that's like Steph Curry in basketball. That's an automatic 3 points, man.
Yeah.
So
and
that
one more thing to go with that.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, he makes his receivers better, which that's what a quarterback is supposed to do. You know what I mean? He's making his receivers better. They're following his lead, and they respect him a lot. And, like, you could just see the bond that he has with his receivers, and they're getting better. He's getting better and better with that as a quarterback leading that offense. So, and, that's what I see out of him. So, yeah, you guys are on a high horse. It's going to be a bunch of sloppy games, man. Like, it's a battle. That's what it,
Yeah.
That's what it is. You're going to war with somebody.
It's confirmation bias. Yeah. I think anytime you're a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time league MVP, 3-time Super Bowl MVP, and I could keep going.
Right, you didn't have to do all that.
I just think when you.
I know, I get it. All right. I'm specifically speaking on right now. In the moment, you didn't have to go that far, bro.
But that's what I'm saying. When you talk about,
you're just like, you know what?
No, what I'm saying though, I'm saying is when you talk about the elevation, this is my point. When you talk about the elevation, him elevating his receivers, it's very easy if I'm a wide receiver and I say, wow, why wouldn't I listen? Why wouldn't I do what Pat says? Why wouldn't I run my route hard? Or why wouldn't I give this extra effort when I've seen? No, I'm saying he elevates them, but it's easier to elevate because these guys have that belief. And so, no, you're absolutely right.
Exactly.
And I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's sort of an elevation there. Now, side note, Isaiah Pacheco did get hurt. It's been reported, of course, that he is going on the IR. So he'll miss at least a couple of weeks. Doesn't sound too good. I think he'll miss longer than that. But this week, the Chiefs picked up Kareem Hunt. The old rumbling, stumbling Kareem Hunt. Now,
I know he excited to be back.
Yeah, heck yeah, he's excited after getting kicked off the team. However, he won't play this Sunday against the Falcons. It was Adam Teicher of ESPN, the Chiefs beat writer. He had reported that he will not play this Sunday against the Falcons. It'll just be Carson Steele, our favorite rookie, Samaje Perine, and of course Keontae Ingram was elevated from the practice squad. So that'll be nice. That'll be nice. I think this will give an opportunity for the Chiefs to continue to get the run game going, younger guys to get some more experience and reps. I'm a little nervous just because if we can't get the run game going against Atlanta, I don't know where that leaves our pass catchers. They've got a decent revamped secondary. So we'll see, but we'll get into predictions later. Let's turn it over to the Lions.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. The Lions, they lose a tough one at home to the Buccaneers. They fall to 1-1. A revenge game, as you will, as Detroit not only beat them in the divisional round this past year, but they also beat them during the regular season. So Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Bowles, some of those guys, they were out for revenge. Thoughts, man?
My thoughts were I would say the Lions beat themselves in that game. I mean, the Detroit defense still only held them to 20 points, and our defense had given us plenty of chances to get in the end zone. I don't know what's happening with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson right now, but that's two games in a row where it just didn't. It's not. I don't know. It wasn't looking good. And I'm watching the press conference from Dan Campbell. I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
He was like, we did a lot of good things. And he was like, yeah, Vita Vea was out and the other defensive lineman was out. I can't think of his name right now. And he was like, yeah, we weren't really trying to, we were trying to get back to running the ball and not have Jared Goff throw it 55 times. And I'm sitting there thinking like, well, when the hell did you try to do that? Because everybody that was watching the game, we clearly seen that you weren't trying to run the ball in the third quarter.
Yeah.
You just wasn't at all.
When that's your bread and butter. When that's your bread and that's what your identity and culture is built on, running the ball.
Yeah. But then watching Ben Johnson's press conference earlier today, and he says, well, Frank Ragnar was like, hey, just put it on my back. Just follow me. Just follow me. We can run the ball. And Ben Johnson was right. He was like, yeah, we tried to run the ball 3 times in a row, and we only got 3 yards. So that's what resulted. That was ultimately the result of Jared Goff having to throw the ball, you know what I'm saying, a total of 55 times. So they couldn't really get it going. Even with Vita Vea out, they couldn't get the run game going, which you're going to have games like that, but you're the Detroit Lions. You're supposed to have this top 5 high-powered offense. You got to figure it out. It's supposed to be more than 2 or 3 ways that you can get the ball downfield. And, I don't know. They just weren't doing that. Jared Goff looked like he was playing scared. I don't even think he took a sack that entire game, and he still wasn't getting the ball off the way he should. Sam Laporta's still not getting the ball. And I'm listening to Ben Johnson again when it comes to that.
APB out for Sam Laporta.
Yeah, but you know what he said that bothered me? He said that he calls the play, right, which is specifically for one receiver or the tight end. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And he said Jared Goff basically has it in his mind to just look for that one receiver. And I'm like, how fucking stupid is that? You don't go to a second choice or a third choice or even a fourth choice.
That's quarterbacking 101. Go through your progressions.
Yeah, but when you hear Ben Johnson talk about it, he was like, no, the plays I call this designed specifically for one receiver. Okay, if it's not working, because you would notice too, in a lot of plays, Jared Goff will follow through with the play, even he can clearly see that it's not going to work. He can clearly see that receivers are double covered. He will still throw the ball and just try not to throw an interception.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's crazy to me. That's not smart quarterbacking to me. That's not trying to win to me. Like
Yep.
that's just that's the play we're gonna follow it. If it don't work, it just don't work. Like I'm not even gonna try to be elusive with the ball and get it to somebody else because it was several plays where a certain receiver was targeted, but you had somebody else wide open. His eyes didn't even go toward that receiver. It was
Yep.
solely focused on what the play was supposed to be. And that's how the Lions lost that game. Dan
So
Campbell took the blame for the field goal or not being able to kick the field goal. That didn't matter. In the third and fourth quarter, I want to say they had maybe 4 to 6 chances in the third and fourth quarter
oh
to
yeah.
get in the
Oh
end
yeah.
zone. The defense
Absolutely.
was doing their thing. That one field goal didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. It's why are you not scoring touchdowns?
Yeah. Yeah, well, two things. Two things.
What are you doing?
I know. Two things. One, I think the Lions have become a bit predictable in terms of you've got the best offensive line in football and you've got probably the best two-headed monster at running back between David Montgomery, your
Yep.
goal line guy between the tackles, and then, of course, your perimeter gets you between the 20 and the 20, explosive guy in Jahmyr Gibbs. And that's what they do. We get it, right? They start the game, David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs, doesn't matter, comes out on the field, they play one drive, the other team knows what they're going to do. Then the next series or the next drive, Detroit comes out, now the other one's on the field. Well, we know Jahmyr Gibbs is more of a pass-catching back, zone read, zone run type of running back. The defense is prepared for that. We know that on first and second down, David Montgomery's on the field, and on third down, Jahmyr Gibbs is on the field, and he's probably getting a screen pass, Ben Johnson. And so I think it's become very predictable. The strength of Detroit's team has become predictable. And that's not good if you're trying to succeed. And part number two with that is the predictability. But then part number two, I think, with Detroit is that we've talked about playing 4 quarters of football. And Dan Campbell, 3 years ago, when Dan Campbell's first year at the helm, we saw that Detroit lose a lot of close games. We would see them play really, really well in the first half, and then in the second half, they drop off and they lose the lead. Or they played very poorly, dig themselves into a hole in the first half, and then in the second half, man, Goff would sling it to Amon-Ra. They would come back, and they'd lose by 3. And you thought, goodness, if you could put both halves of football together and play complete 4 quarters, Detroit would be all right. By last year, that's what happened. It was a young team that learned how to win at the end, manage the clock. Dan Campbell was making better coaching decisions, and it almost looks like they've regressed a little bit. They handed out the big contract to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Everybody knows you're going to him 35 times a game, Jared Goff. They know they've got the best offensive line and the two-headed monster in the running backs. But how you use them, those running backs, have become predictable. So now you're seeing this roller coaster ride from quarter to quarter, series to series, half to half with Detroit again. And they're just not putting together 2 full halves of football to complete a game and then win it. And I think that's where we're at. Goff, by the way, was, like you said, 34 for 55, 307 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. But on a positive note, Aiden Hutchinson, talk about him.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to talk about him. I mean, he did a phenomenal job. It was 5.5 sacks or something like that. That's cool.
4.5, yeah.
4.5 sacks. That's great. That's fine. But
Yeah.
see, it was at one point in time where the offense had to back up the defense. Now the defense is backing up the offense, but you can't get anything out of the offense.
Yep.
And we talked about this all offseason, like they need that defense to complement the offense. And then we go to week 1 and we like, what the hell is going on? And then we see it again in week 2 and we like, holy, this is a problem.
Yeah.
This is a problem. And
Yeah.
if we see it one more time, I don't want to just be super upset and talk out the side of my neck, but if we see it again, it's not going to look good for
Yeah.
Detroit. And all the hype and all the talk is going to slowly turn back around to where it used to be. It just is. It's so easy to go back to the negative side of things than it is to continue on that high horse that they were on. And
Yeah.
people are going to start changing their thoughts and their mind frames about them. I guarantee you, one more week of seeing Jared Goff being at a 49%
Yep.
QBR, 49%. He was 90 plus every single game all season last year. The first two games you were at 49%. Like, yeah,
Well,
one more game, one more week, they got to do something. I don't know what
now
it's
more
going
of
to
an
be. They got to.
yeah, I mean more of an optimistic approach here, and how I want to think about it. Because, by the way, audience, anybody who's been following us knows that Xavier and I had a really nice exchange. I'll call it a nice exchange. Maybe it was a little heated. Maybe some of our viewers decided that, but I really got on Jared Goff after Week 1 performance and our last episode. Go check that out. But I was gonna eat your lunch today here, X, on the Jared Goff talk. But I'm gonna leave it alone because I think you understand. I think you know, hey, now we've just got to take it week to week. However, a more of an optimistic approach is that this culture and foundation that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have built, and Sheila Ford Hamp, owner, there's more resolve, there's more resiliency. There is a foundation of bouncing back. How do we fight through adversity? And if there's one thing Dan Campbell is proven on over the last 3 years, is that every year he's improved, week to week he's improved, and they'll get the ship righted. Now, it's only through 2 weeks. We're 1-1. Everything's still in front of Detroit, so we're good there. And just to support, I mean, that two halves, putting two halves of football together, I mean, you had a good opening drive to the second half, resulted in a field goal, right? Now, the biggest thing that I saw was red zone. Detroit was 1 of 7 in the red zone. You got to put the ball in the end zone. And we talked about that third wide receiver, the lack thereof, a third wide receiver for Detroit behind Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams. They've got to get that figured out. But then the next possession, Detroit scores. They take a 16-13 lead, and then that's where it stopped. You ended the second half with a punt, an interception, a turnover on downs, and another turnover on downs. And so it just shows you the tale of two halves. But I like Detroit. Like I said, everything's in front of them still. You've still got the division. You've got some surprise teams in the NFC that are 0-2, stuff like that. You've got some surprise teams that are 2-0. One, namely, in your division, in the Minnesota Vikings. So that's something to watch out for going forward. But let's go ahead and get on to our predictions for Week 3. That's enough about Week 2. It's behind us, and all we're looking at is up here. So going into Week 2, of course, we'll kind of turn it back to the Chiefs here. The Chiefs do play Atlanta this upcoming week. Kirk Cousins, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, their weapons, coming off of a massive win on Monday night. Kind of speak about that.
Yeah, it took forever to get to that point, to get to that win. You're not gonna. I mean, credit to Atlanta though for getting the win. Kirk Cousins came alive in the fourth quarter when he should have.
Last possession, yeah.
Last possession, you can't do that against everybody. But I think he's like he even said it that he just didn't feel right week 1. He needed to. He's in a new city, new team. He still
Absolutely.
has to get accustomed to it and get used to everything. But I think that last drive probably did it for him. So he may come into week 3 looking a whole lot different than he did week 1 and week 2. But we'll see. You just never know. He's going up against a really, really good Chiefs defense, really, really good Chiefs offense. I don't know. I think 3-0 for the Chiefs. Just is what it is. I don't.
Isn't it nice to be a part of the kingdom, Xavier? It's nice to be a part of Chiefs' kingdom, isn't it? I mentioned last week.
In the real world, man, I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just mentioned last week, of course, that this show might get a little boring when we talk Chiefs talk because, well, here we go. Our audience knows my prediction. 17-0, clean run through the playoffs, first undefeated season since 1972. Miami Dolphins did it, and Patrick Mahomes wins MVP and Super Bowl MVP, and we could go on and on. But, no, I agree with you. I think, obviously, the Chiefs get the win. They've taken advantage of the two opening home games they've had at Arrowhead against two AFC North foes, and of course the Bengals and the Ravens. So one, they win by a toenail. The other, hey, we get the big 4th and 16 pass interference call to set Butker up to win that one. So now we go on the road. Now we go to Atlanta. Atlanta, hey, as you had mentioned, that last possession, Kirk Cousins looked good. No timeouts, a minute 40, and all you do is go 92 yards to win the ball game. That's a heck of a drive, and it inspires that young receiver, Drake London, Bijan. They finally got a veteran there in the backfield with them that they're like, okay, he's been there, he's done that. We can, we've got his back. We can definitely score and win here. I just with the patched up backfield that the Chiefs have, I'm a little nervous about the run game, and that's something the Chiefs have always struggled with. If we don't get that run game going, we definitely suffer in the passing game just because we don't have Hollywood Brown. He's out until at least January. Xavier Worthy, teams are starting to key on him, and obviously Rashee Rice is a monster over the middle. But speaking of Sam Laporta for the Detroit Lions, where's Travis Kelce been? And I don't want to hear the reports about Taylor Swift and all that. I don't even care about any of that. Good for him. And I know that's not a distraction.
I don't think that matters.
That people talk about. I don't even care about that. But just in general, Reed, how are we not getting him the ball, in the first couple of minutes of the game? Let's get him going.
I mean, they may be trying, but it's like you said with it's like with Amon-Ra St. Brown the first 2 weeks. They figured out a way to slow him down. Some defensive coordinators can figure out how to slow Travis Kelce down. They just can't.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of defense, going to the Chiefs' defense, I do like Chiefs' defense against Kirk Cousins. I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to dial up the blitzes. I think Kirk Cousins isn't as mobile, of course, coming off of the Achilles injury last year. And so I think he gets the typical Spags defenses, exotic blitzes, pressures, things like that. And, of course, we'll key on Bijan and attack it from there. So, overall, I like a 31-20 ball game is my prediction for the Chiefs and Falcons. I just think that after last week, the Chiefs are incredibly motivated after last week. I think they come in and they say, hey, we've got to this can't look like last year.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it's going to be a blowout. I give you 31-10.
Wow, 31-10.
That's just what I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I see a blowout in Atlanta. You guys they're on the road in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, on the road in Atlanta. Wow, you are high on the Chiefs. I believe the line, if I'm not mistaken, Chiefs are favored by 3 on the road with the over-under at 46.5. So Vegas likes the Chiefs on the road by 3, by a field goal.
That's the trick. They know Atlanta is going to get blew out. They know that. If I was a betting man, I'd do a +10 at minimum.
You're hammering that line.
I would.
You're hammering that favorite by 3.
I would, and I just may go and do it. I just may go and do it. I would do a +10.
Yeah,
seriously, I would.
Okay,
I just will. So.
Well, no. So you're high on the Chiefs. I'm high on the Chiefs, of course, and I think we can get on a run here. Hey, I have to be high on the Chiefs. I predicted 17-0. Flipping it to the other side, of course. Yeah, right. By the way, puckered up a little bit towards the end of that. On that 4th and 16, I was puckered up a little bit. I thought, wow, what are the comments going to look like on our YouTube channel? Once again, check out our channel at Heartland NFL Talk there on YouTube. Check out my monologue series every Wednesday as well. However, a little puckered up on that 4th and 16. I saw the flag, and I thought, oh, praise Jesus. Praise Jesus. Flipping to the other side. Flipping to the other side, of course, we know Detroit. Is it an away game this week? I forgot. Against the Cardinals? Yeah, it's in Arizona. Detroit had 2 home games as well. So Detroit goes to Arizona. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., big-time win, blowout win last week. Thoughts? What are we looking at with Detroit?
I will say that I don't know what to say. They haven't given me anything to talk about. So I'm going to just say Detroit loses on the road. I don't have any explanation for it. I'm just going to
Wow.
say Detroit goes into Arizona and loses on the road. And I say that just given Arizona was this close from beating Buffalo. And to follow that up, they beat the brakes off of the Rams, who we had to go into overtime with to win. I'm gonna give the win to the Cardinals. I hate to do that. I hate to be that way, but it just is what it is. They're playing better football than we are, especially on offense.
Okay, a
So,
little context there. Just side note: the Rams didn't have Puka Nakua, and Cooper Kupp went down late
so
in that game. No, I'm just
yeah.
saying, incredible job by the Cardinals.
But
I'm just saying, a little bit of context there. There's some injuries and things like that, but no, I'm with you. Vegas, oddly, maybe not oddly, Vegas has Detroit favored by 3 on the road this week as well.
by three, I know, because it's a setup. Detroit is going to lose that game. It
Okay.
is. If you look at um, they the first couple of weeks they were like 90%. And I say 90% with all like NFL talk hosts giving Lions the wins. This week it's like 50-50. Now that everybody's to the point, well, not everybody, but half of the people are to the point now where they're not going to pick the Lions to win. Especially just given what we just seen in the last 2 weeks with Arizona. It's kind of hard to just say that the Lions are going to go into Arizona and beat Arizona, given what we've seen the
Yeah.
first 2 weeks out of the Lions offense. That's not a winning team. It's not. That's not a winning offense.
Well,
If you're a real football guy and you watch football, you're not going to sit there and look and say, oh, Lions about to go into Arizona and just beat them. No, they're not going to do that. They're not. I think the struggles are still going to be there on offense. And it's going to mainly be because of what Ben Johnson said. He calls a play, he targets a receiver, and he only targets that one receiver. It's only every once in a while where Jared Goff will get smart and he'll go through his reads and his options. He doesn't do that every single play. He only does that, every so often. And you can see it. Just sit back and watch him. When you watch this Sunday, sit back and watch him, and you will see Ben Johnson was right. Ben Johnson wasn't saying it in the way that I'm saying it. He was just confirming what I already knew. When
yeah.
he said that, I'm like, that's crazy. That's
Well,
exactly what he does. So,
Well, just for our
yeah.
audience, the genesis of our conversation where I was harping on Jared Goff last week, I had asked if you thought that Jared Goff could hang with elite quarterbacks in crucial moments and in
I
crucial
mean,
games. No, allow me to finish here. And so I hammered on
mhm.
that. Well, we just saw he had 55 pass attempts this past week, right? And so I think that goes directly into the point I made last week. When the game is on Jared Goff's shoulders, can he perform? Yes. Is it at the level that we always need him to? No. On top of that, Xavier, what I'm trying to say is the fact that you have to get back to your identity this week. I think if Ben Johnson goes in this week and said, hey, let's not put it on Jared Goff's shoulders. We've got Penei Sewell. We've got Ragnow. We've got these guys that are maulers in the running game. Get Gibbs. Get
I would
Montgomery.
love to
Boom,
see
boom,
that.
boom, boom. Right? Get that
I
1-2
would
punch
love
rolling.
to
And
see
I
that.
think if Detroit keeps that, sticks to their plan, sticks to their identity, and has some early success with that running game, I don't think there's anything Phoenix can do. I don't think there's anything the Cardinals can scheme up to say, oh, one, the Cardinals don't have the personnel to stop an elite running game like that. And two, when Detroit's rolling, they're the best in the National Football League, point blank, period. And so I think if they go in with their identity, they say, hey, we're going to run the Goff might have 20 attempts, 23 attempts. Let's say he goes 16 for 21 for 185 yards, maybe a touchdown. But then between Gibbs and Montgomery, they've got 35 carries between the both of them. Detroit went for 185 yards on the ground with a couple of touchdowns. I think you're solid, and I think that's what they need to do this week. So I like Detroit. I think they're going to get back to what they know. I think Dan Campbell's going to say, hey, we bite kneecaps. Let's get back to that physical style of Detroit football. Absolutely. But that's just
They're
me.
going to bite him and they're going, okay.
Hey, for your sake, I hope you're wrong. For your sake, I hope you're wrong. Okay, let's go to our End Zone Insights segment. Folks, our End Zone Insights segment is brought to you by absolutely nobody. but we will take anybody. So hit us up at Heartland NFL Talk. Okay. First end zone insights question. We kind of just go around the NFL. We look at some things that happened the past week with some other teams. It is called Heartland Huddle, Chiefs, Lions, and NFL Talk. So here we go. Going back to that Monday Night Football game, Atlanta and, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, do you like the coaching decision by Nick Sirianni to throw the ball on that 3rd and 3, the one where Saquon dropped it? Thus, they had to kick the field goal, and they give the ball back with 1:40 back to Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. Do you like the coaching decision to throw the ball on 3rd and 3 there?
I like it because if it worked, he would have been loved. So I liked it. It could have been a slightly better throw to Saquon. He could have put it out in front of him a little bit instead of over his shoulder.
It was out in front.
The ball
He
touched
let him.
his hands.
Yeah, he dropped it.
I mean, so let's say he caught it. Let's say he caught it and scored. Will we have this conversation?
No, game's over.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, if he catches it, scores, or run out the clock, they win the game. It's not a bad call at all. Nobody would have brought that play up.
Sure.
But we bring it up because he didn't catch it. Go ahead.
No, hey, good point there. However, hindsight is 20/20. And here's the thing. In the moment, Xavier, if I'm thinking, there's 1:40 left on the clock, or a little bit more at this point. My big free agent addition this year for Philadelphia was Saquon Barkley. By paying him the money they paid him, by bringing him in over getting rid of DeAndre Swift, shipping him to Chicago, and bringing in Saquon, Philadelphia basically said, hey, this is the best player on at least the offensive side of the ball outside of A.J. Brown. We're going to put a lot more on that running game's plate because we brought in Saquon. How on a 3rd and 3, that's what he's paid to do, X, because here's the thing. If you don't get the 3rd and 3 by running the ball, you can still run the clock down all the way under a minute, kick the field goal. Now Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons have 0 timeouts. They can't stop the clock, and they've got to drive 70 or 80 yards or whatever it is to score to beat you, right? Versus you throw it, Saquon doesn't catch it, that stops the clock, you kick the field goal, and now they get to go down the field and drive and score with 1:40 on the clock when they would have had about 50 seconds on the clock if you run it and you don't get it. So the worst case scenario for one is better than the best case scenario for the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what I was thinking, but I forgot what happened in the press conference because I was sitting there thinking well, that's how you separate the good coaches from the great coaches, or
Absolutely.
the great coaches from the bad coaches. Nick Sirianni put that off his offensive coordinator at the end of
Yeah.
when he got to the press conference. He basically was like, hell, that wasn't my decision. That was his decision. Don't chew me out. When y'all talk to him next week, chew his at. No, you take the blame like a real head coach is supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? You're the ultimate finalizer, so you take the blame. But he took that off his shoulders real quick. Well,
and you're not immune.
When he got asked that question.
Well, you're not immune to poor coaching decisions either, especially in the playoffs. Hey, that's not a low blow. I'm just saying you can't let analytics dominate every decision. At the end of the day, as a head coach, you have got to have the pulse of your team and the situation. But moving on here. Just wanted to review, we had touched on it earlier, 0-2 and 2-0 starts. Surprisingly, the Bengals and the Ravens are both 0-2 in the AFC North. But how about your 2-0 teams? We've got the Saints. Wow. The Vikings, the Bucks, the Chargers, and Steelers. Who would have thought after 2 weeks the Steelers are leading the AFC North? The Chargers are hanging around with the Chiefs. We thought it was going to be – we thought the Bucks – at least I did. My NFC South winner was Atlanta in that division.
Yeah.
They're 1-1.
Yeah.
How about the Saints, huh? How about the –
I'm not surprised at the Saints,
off
though.
the Cowboys. You're not surprised? No,
Yeah.
I thought – I'm not a believer in Derek
surprised by
Carr.
that at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, Derek Carr is okay. I'm not going to say being a believer in him or not. I thought they were going to be good last year. I think he got hurt a few times last year, but they came out the gate swinging. Alvin Kamara's still there. Cameron Jordan's still there. Their defense is tough. And Marshawn Lattimore didn't even play. I think he's going to play this week, though. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at the Saints. Am I surprised that they're putting up the points they're putting up? Yeah, but I'm not surprised that they're winning. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Derek Carr is playing like
yeah, I'm not surprised that they're
2016
winning.
MVP voted Derek Carr. Alvin Kamara is turning back the clock. Talk about Cameron Jordan. He's almost 40. Shout out to Clint Kubiak, new offensive coordinator there this year for, of course, the New Orleans Saints. But walk into Dallas, where Dallas over the last 5 years have been not great, but they've been historical at home with their point differential, what they've done inside of Jerry's world, and you walk in and you just flat embarrass them. It was the wild card game all over again. I was in disbelief.
Yeah,
I mean, you beat up.
Wasn't. I mean, it's not hard to come in Dallas and win. Not in this day and age. I mean, yeah.
They've been historic at home over the last 5 years. Their home record over the last 5 years has been incredible. Minus the playoffs.
Not this season. This season. And you're going to see a lot more losses at home.
Wow, I detect a little bit of pessimism this evening on your part.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You think the Cowboys are going to beat the Ravens Sunday?
No. Good question. Here's why. Hold on. Here's why. Because of what we just saw in the running game. This isn't a talent deficit that the Cowboys have, right? We've seen Jerry honestly put together for everybody wants to say, oh, he controls the Cowboys too much, all of this different stuff. That might be true. However, what you can say is that man knows how to put together a football team. That man has a great collection of talent, one of the most talented rosters over the past half decade. However, I think they're a bit undersized on defense. Every time they've got the doors blown off of them, Xavier, particularly in the playoffs, who's it been against? The 49ers, great running game. Who was it? C.J. Anderson against the Rams that year where Todd Gurley was hurt. That was back in Sean Lee was still there with Dallas along with Leighton Vander Esch. I think that was his rookie year. And Anderson just ran all over, embarrassed them boys. I think they're a little bit undersized on the defensive line, and they struggle with that running scheme. Now, however, we all thought Derrick Henry was going to come in and be a world beater for Baltimore this year. Struggled a little bit the first 2 weeks of the season. Lamar Jackson still trying to act like he's dropping back in Peyton Manning. So I think Baltimore's going to win because of their run game, but I'm not surprised after a bad loss, regrouping, Dallas's defense takes a look in the mirror and says, we've got to stop the run at some point. This is costing us ball game. So I like Baltimore in it, but I'm not shocked if the Cowboys win based off this past week.
Yeah. Hey, but I like the Saints. They look good.
Saints. Let's talk about the Vikings. 2-0 in that AFC North division. Detroit sitting at 1-1. Excuse me, NFC North division. Correct. Sitting at 1-1. Detroit is. Vikings atop the division at 2-0. Big win by the Green Bay Packers with Malik Willis being traded there just a few weeks ago. Comes in. Jordan Love's hurt. Gets the big win. So Josh Jacobs carrying the load. I had said it in one of our previous episodes. I had said, hey, the Vikings, I think, could give the Lions a run for their money or at least be on the heels. We thought they'd be formidable. We thought they'd be scrappy this year. And here they are, 2-0, and that's with the Justin Jefferson going down early in that game.
Yeah, he did go down early in that game. I think Kevin O'Connell, he has a quarterback that he can work with. He has a quarterback that can follow his playbook. Which not saying that Kirk Cousins didn't. And the defense is sharper now. They wasn't as sharp last season. They're a lot sharper this year. So, yeah, Vikings look good. I don't know. Vikings look good. I don't know. I just think the Lions to get back to what they do best.
Hey, perk up, Buttercup. So. Perk up. They're going to be okay. They'll be 2-1. They're facing an inexperienced Kyler Murray-led Phoenix team. They'll be okay. Okay, last but not least, it's our fun segment to end our episodes here, audience. Once again, you can like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Heartland NFL Talk. You can find us on Apple Podcast. You can also catch my monologue series every Wednesday to sort of listen to contextualization of different narratives of being a Chiefs fan. Our last segment, Would You Rather? It's a fun segment, once again, brought to you by absolutely nobody, but we will take anybody. Okay, X, our Would You Rather question. Would you rather have a dominant defense that holds teams to 10 points and an offense that struggles to score, or would you have a dominant offense that scores 30-plus but can't stop a nosebleed?
Offense a dominant offense that can score 30-plus but the defense can't stop a nosebleed. And I'm going to tell you why I say that.
Please do. Please do.
Because that's what Detroit was last year, and they went to the NFC Championship. That's why I say that. Prime example. If the offense is rolling, they can make up for it. They can move the ball on anybody. Except the Baltimore Ravens, they played so bad in that game they got kicked off of national television. But I'll take a dominant offense with a defense that can't stop a nosebleed.
Yeah.
So, and it seems like we can't get both right now. So if I had to choose one or the other, I'm taking the offense. So, yeah.
Good answer. I'll give you an even better prime example. USDA Grade A example. 2018 Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes' first year of starting, he throws for 50 tugs, 5,000 yards, goes to the AFC Championship game for the first time in 50 years, plays Tom Brady and those vaunted New England Patriots. D Ford, that's the game. He's offsides by 4 inches. I'm still mad about it. Anywho, terrible defense, led by Bob Sutton, of course. Trash defense, and we still almost won that game and went to the Super Bowl. However, having said all of that, I'm taking the dominant defense, and here's why. Because an even better example of that is the 2000 Ravens. Trent Dilfer, if we remember, you had Ray Lewis on that defensive side of the ball, Ed Reed and all them boys. They did hold teams to 10 points plus. Plus, defense can score points for the offense. We just saw it this past week. We just saw it week 1. Caleb Williams comes out of the gate, struggles for Chicago. That young, hungry defense in Chicago scores a touchdown or two. Chicago, of course, ends up winning the ball game. I just think with the dominant defense, you know the other team's not going to score. Eventually your offense will get going, or 2, your defense and special teams is going to put up a couple of touchdowns or 2 and win you a ball game that maybe you shouldn't have. Now, the fireworks, the fan in me says I want to see 30-plus every game, but the defensive end and defensive player in me says, hey, dominant defense is also fun to watch if you're one of those NFL heads like we are. So, well, man, if you've got nothing else, I think that concludes episode 3 here. I appreciate you joining me here, Xavier. Once again, audience, you can catch us every single Saturday with our predictions episode at Heartland NFL Talk is our YouTube channel. You can also search on Apple Podcasts as well. You can check out my monologue series, of course, every Wednesday, along with, of course, my co-host and I's reaction episodes every Tuesday as well. With that, man, I think we're out. Please like and subscribe and let us know how we can be better for you. Good to go.
Absolutely. Peace out.
All right. Thanks, guys.